Isn't it ironic? When Girard Perregoux Laureato was released in 1975, it was labeled as a ripoff or a copy of AP Royal Oak designed by Gerald Genta. I don't believe this criticism was actually justified, as other major brands like Patek Philippe and RWC followed suit shortly after. You don't have to take my word for it. There are experts in this field who will tell you the same thing. However, I find it somewhat ironic that now this AliExpress model is imitating the imitation. Well, kind of. So, how good is this watch that I have here? Well, it is actually seriously good, and as I discovered while preparing this review, there is definitely more to it than meets the eye. So, let's take a closer look at it. Hello and welcome back. Okay, a spoiler alert, the quality of this watch is simply outstanding, and yes, we are not getting a box standard NH35 in the back of it either, and not all of the cool parts of this really well executed timepiece are obvious, but rest assured, I will go through each and every one of them in the course of this review. However, despite the excellent execution, there is at least one area of this watch, or maybe even two, that can be a bit divisive, depending on your viewpoint, and it is kind of in your face, and I will of course address it in the moment when we look at the design. But before we do, a quick disclaimer: this watch was sent to me for review and I get to keep it. The only thing I was asked in return was to point you to the product listings on AliExpress and of course to share a comprehensive review of this timepiece, which I'm about to do. And yes, all the necessary links will be in the description of this video. Okay, let's look at the design, and will probably be the first area of this watch that will divide some opinions. The second area is probably the brand name, but I will come to it a bit later. BETTIMER offers this watch in 4 different colorways, all looking pretty good in my opinion. The only thing to point out here is that the yellow colorway, which is more rather copper yellow, so the second hand and the logo on this color option are plated to match the color of the dial. So, design, or rather pretty much absence of any, and here I am somewhat conflicted. On one hand, I'm starting to enjoy more and more original designs that are coming from vendors behind AliExpress listings, but on the other hand, the design that was used as inspiration here is absolutely gorgeous. However, the price that Girard Perregoux is asking for this design is not less impressive. I believe the new JP Laureato will set you back by about $15,000 or about £12,000 here in the UK. And in this respect, I really appreciate that this homage gives us a glimpse of this iconic design, but of course with a considerably more attainable price tag. Okay, I doubt that we will be getting JP level of construction, and of course we will not be able to marvel through the exhibition case back at Girard Perregoux beautifully finished in-house movement with 54 hours of power reserve. However, this BETTIMER still comes pretty close when it comes to overall feel and proportions, as we will see now when we go over the dimensions. So, for the record, the JP Laureato that is being homaged here actually comes in 2 different sizes, 42mm and 38mm. So, BETTIMER made their watch with 40mm case diameter, landing right smack in the middle. To be honest, 40mm work really well for this style, at least on my about 7-inch wrist. We have 11mm case height here, which makes this case look very elegant, measuring lug-to-lug distance, and we get 47.5mm, which basically guarantees suitability for most wrist sizes, starting from about 6 inches and up. Okay, the inverted end links here have very little articulation in them, so for a full picture we can measure the distance between them, which is 50.9mm. However, the end links do point down quite aggressively, and also they don't define the case visual outline, and therefore only further contribute to how comfortable it is to wear this watch. We also have here a generous amount of spare links, so the bracelet as supplied should cover up to 8 3/4 of an inch, or about 22 cm wrists in circumference. And as supplied, this watch weighs 151 grams and 135 grams after adjusting it to my about 7-inch wrist. The full stainless steel construction case presents a beautiful play of brushed and polished surfaces. As I already pointed out, there is very little credit goes to BETTIMER for the design, however the execution is really top-notch. I really like this horizontal brushing on top of the case, and we have thin high polish chamfers on both flanks running all the way from one lug to another. Framing the dial, we have this quite unusual bezel. Okay, on one hand, this bezel is one of the key design elements here that makes this watch look like Gerald Genta's AP Royal Oak. However, on another hand, there is a very interesting twist to this bezel. Well, almost literally. In the original Girard Perregoux design, this octagonal bezel resembling a large nut is actually a nut that is screwed into the case and as such further enhancing case structural integrity and water resistance. I think it is pretty cool design idea. Now, did BETTIMER do the same thing on this octagonal bezel, or is it purely cosmetic? Well, I'm not quite sure, and I wasn't going to try to turn it either. So, this bezel has circular brushing on top and is mirror polished on the sides, and also we have this high polished round base between the bezel and the case. We have a very well proportioned side screw down crown. The crown has a classic look and is very comfortable in operation. The case is also comparatively thin, 11mm, which really makes it a very comfortable daily watch that will easily slide under a shirt cuff. The back case cover is secured with 6 screws. The cover has a high polished perimeter and brush center with engraved key specifications. And we also get here 100 meters of water resistance, making this elegant sport watch very practical indeed. We have a domed sapphire crystal here. The crystal sits ever so slightly proud of the bezel, and it is a singled domed crystal, which gives that interesting subtle distortion when we look at the dial at a very acute angle. And while I haven't found any mentions of air coating, this watch deals with reflections really well. I specifically took it out outside in the bright sun, well, as bright as it gets here in London, and as you can see, this blue dial stays quite legible. So, dial. The same story as with the rest of this watch. Not many points for originality, but the execution is simply outstanding. It is in fact so good that I'm very comfortable doing macro shots at 4K resolution, taking full advantage of my camera and of my macro lens. The applied hour markers are well finished, the quality of handset and the way the hands are set on the pinion are actually on par, if not better, than I've seen on some Swiss-made watches in considerably higher price category. The perfectly flat hands are very well finished and bounce the light really nicely. The hands are filled with lume, and I must say I was quite surprised by the lume performance, as I will demonstrate in a moment. The Clou de Paris textured dial background, that is those tiny pyramids pattern on the dial, make it look really premium. We of course have a neatly cut out date window at 3 o'clock position, and the date background is color matched to the dial, a nice touch. And I must say I really like the brand logo at 12 o'clock position. I've seen quite a few logo designs on AliExpress, and this one definitely one of the better ones. And now here is the lume footage. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't expect this level of lume from this dress sport style watch. However, I must say that it is great that BETTIMER managed to match the lume performance with the overall build quality of this timepiece. Now, as a refreshing change, we are not getting an H35 here. Instead, we get a more sophisticated PT5000 caliber, which is based on Swiss ETA 2824-2 architecture. PT5000 operates at 28,000 vibrations per hour, it has 38 hours of power reserve and accuracy of ± 12 seconds a day. Am I happy that we get a more sophisticated movement here? Well, definitely. Is PT5000 the best alternative? Well, let's talk about it in a moment when we get to the verdict section. Looking at the bracelet, we have integrated design here, and it is done really well. The case almost seamlessly transitions to the bracelet, and we get an effect of almost a holistic stainless steel structure with the dial kind of sunk into it, which is in a way explains why this watch fits various wrist sizes so well. The bracelet has an elegant taper down to about 18mm by the clasp. We have H-style links here, which are all made out of stainless steel, including the end links. The links are connected by screws. The H sections of the bracelet are brushed on the top and on the sides, and the inner parts of the links are mirror polished. There is a thin chamfer that runs along the top side of the bracelet, continuing the chamfers on the flanks of the case, which even further enhances the cohesive look of this case and the bracelet. Bracelet build quality is top-notch, the tolerances are tight and the finishing is good too. As for the clasp, well, we have a simple butterfly clasp here. I like the engraved brand logo, which is the same as on the crown and on the dial. The butterfly clasp is simple and functional, however, as most butterfly clasps, it does come with a limitation of not having a macro adjustments, and absence of any half links on the bracelet might make obtaining a perfect fit a bit challenging. Okay, first the price. At the time of making this video, this watch was priced at around $240. I believe by using various discounts and vouchers on AliExpress, there is a possibility to knock off around 10% or about $20 off that price. So, what do we get at this price point here? Well, a really high level of refinement in terms of case and bracelet, as well as the dial. Of course, all the premium materials, very good lume and a higher grade movement. And another important detail, there is no other alternative to this design on AliExpress at the time of making this video and at this price point. Now, in terms of my verdict, well, first and foremost, while preparing this review, I actually rediscovered an amazing brand and an amazing watch for myself. Girard Perregoux was never on top of my must-to-know more about brands list, and now it definitely is. And as for this BETTIMER, well, it has an excellent build quality all around. However, I do have a couple of areas that I don't consider my favorite. First, the movement. The PT5000 has been around now for a few years, and while there were reports of some issues in the past, these days we're seeing considerably less and less of those reports, which is of course very positive. Still, if I had a choice and I wanted to keep the price more or less unchanged, I would consider Seagull ST2130, which is pretty much identical caliber but with much stronger reputation, or even Miyota 9000 series, which would have given us very similar performance. And my second not-so-favorite point on this timepiece is the brand name. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, I really like the logo design, so that's fine in my books. However, the BETTIMER as a name is a bit unusual. I heard some people breaking it into two parts, bet and timer, which maybe makes sense to some extent, and as a single word, BETTIMER, well, kind of okay, still doesn't exactly roll off the tongue either. I really wonder if a few minutes with ChatGPT would have helped BETTIMER marketing team to come up with a different name. Not a deal breaker for me, however, on this really well-refined watch. What are your thoughts? Well, do let us know in the comments. And for more reviews, do check my links on the screen to my playlist over here. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you for watching, take care, and I will see you in the next video.